So the Internal Audit Summit, again, at Meta was a truly a game changer for us. The theme was centered around reimagine, and we wanted to highlight the importance of collaboration and embracing the next generation of auditing.
This episode is brought to you by Greenskies Analytics, an audit analytics service provider that works with internal audit departments that have data analysts and are still frustrated with trying to make analytics actually work, aren't getting the expected ROI, who can't break through the communication barrier between the analysts and the audit team, and those that need experienced direction through an audit analytics strategy and process. Those that feel like they've wasted time and money on trainings, aren't getting the value they want, not prioritizing the highest risk areas for the organizations, or have projects that seemingly never get completed. Do you deal with any of that? If you do, go to the show notes of this episode and click the Greenskies Analytics link, or go to greenskiesanalytics.com to schedule a call and understand how Greenskies Analytics makes analytics actually work for internal audit. Hey everybody, before we jump into the show, I just want to let you know that the Audit Analytics and AI Conference is September 25th and 26th this year. It's all virtual, so no matter where you are in the world, you can absolutely attend. Recordings are also available, so if you are 12 hours away and don't want to be up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, you can purchase the recordings. This is the only conference that's strictly about analytics and AI for internal audit. So you're going to get your practitioners' use cases. This thing is practitioner-led, save for one speaker that we had this year, but everyone else is in your peer group, ranging from the largest internal audit data analytics teams in the world down to the individual contributor who spends, hey, I got 50% of my time I can dedicate towards analytics. Each speaker's mission is to show you how to actually do what they are talking about. So thought leadership is great, and there will certainly be some of that, but for the most part, that's great. We love the thought leadership. Show us how to actually do it. We are currently at 19 speakers and counting, so we're going to add a few more, and you can get up to 19 CPEs if you attend. Check out the link in the show notes, or you can search for Google the auditanalyticsconference.com, and you can register there. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Audit Podcast. I'm your host, Trent Russell, and today we have Badal Patel. He is the head of data analytics and innovation for the Internal Audit Department at Meta. Badal is also speaking at the Audit Analytics and AI Conference this year, and so check the link in the show notes, sign up for that, or you can search for the auditanalyticsconference.com, where you can get registered there. Some of the things that we hit on with Badal is, what's the coolest thing that you've built lately? What project are you actively working on right now relative to analytics and AI? And the internal audit team at Meta does an internal audit summit. And so Badal had recently gotten back from that summit. And so to the extent that we could, figure out the details of that, what came out of it, what were the benefits of it, how could other people do something similar to the Meta Internal Audit Summit. And then the rest of the show is largely data analytics and GenAI. How is Badal using that in his internal audit process, planning, controls execution, reporting? How is he using it personally for any kind of time management type areas or productivity in general type areas, which is where I found a lot of value in using these GenAI tools. I will note that Meta has a ChatGPT competitor called Llama. And so the conversation revolves a lot around Llama, because obviously Badal's going to be using the Llama model as opposed to ChatGPT. So for those that didn't know, if you are using ChatGPT or something similar, we're referring to Llama here throughout the episode. With that said, here we go. In either your internet browsing history or I guess your Llama history. And for those that aren't familiar with Llama, and especially why I'm asking you, while I've never asked anyone else what's in their Llama history, tell us a little bit about what Llama is, and then go into what you've been looking around in there lately.
Yep. So first, my browsing history, I'll hit on that, is a sort of a blend of professional and personal interests. On the professional side, I like to visit Gartner, the IIA, GitHub, AWS, various AI-related articles that come up on my feed. I guess the algorithm has sort of gotten used to some of my interests. So that's how I like to stay updated on the latest tools and trends for data analytics, AI. I go, also, you'll find in my history, I go through tutorials, YouTube videos to enhance some of my technical skills. And that brings us to Llama, right? Your question. So Llama, think of it this way. You have ChatGPT, which has their GPT-4o model. And Llama is what Meta has released, open source model. We're at Llama 3. So it's an equivalent larger language model. So it's sort of a competitor. I wouldn't say competitor, but it's open source, as opposed to ChatGPT, which is closed source. But this open source model makes it, in my view, a little bit more powerful in the way it's customizable for any given either department or use case. Makes it easier to bring into your sort of ecosystem. And I often use it to brainstorm ideas, troubleshoot technical issues, summarize information, and test out new functionalities. For example, I might ask it to create a specific Excel formula, walk me through creating a process in Python, for example, if I'm doing any data analytics testing, or summarize this large body of text into 100 words, for example.
Yeah, the development stuff is absolutely, that's what was jaw-dropping to me, when it literally just starts spitting out code at you. And I've shown it to other people, and they get a similar reaction whenever we show it. So that is pretty impressive. ChatGPT, Llama, kind of take your pick. I like both of those, though, and it's kind of fun if you get around. There's a handful of them now for anyone that's interested, just to go, all right, this prompt in this tool gives me this one gives me this one. And then they each can do something better than another one. So that's kind of, to some folks, might be splitting hairs, but to some others, it's pretty interesting to see the slight differences. But, all right, what have you been working on? So you're lead data analyst for internal audit at Meta. What's something cool that you've been working on lately? What's just like a cool project?
Yeah, so one of the most exciting projects I've been working on involves leveraging capabilities from APIs. So we have a platform for our audit management system. It's called Workiva, where I've been having to create processes for pushing real-time data updates, as well as creating like a dynamic alert system. So this integration has been a game changer for our audit operations team, and in particular, and it demonstrates like how internal audit is a prime area for innovation. Workiva has been a great partner to us, but sometimes the functionality is not there yet, and we need to think outside of the box to create additional functionality. For example, to comply with standards and internal guidelines, we had a need to create a systematic enforcement mechanism to lock projects in the audit management system. So what I did was I developed a sophisticated Alteryx workflow that reads current data from the Workiva API, performs calculations on the number of days since a report was issued, counts for holidays and weekends, and then gets it to a sort of final listing. And then these are the ones that we want to sort of lock, for example. Then we want to hit the Workiva API again, so that the lock edits, once a specific days have elapsed, we hit that property value using the Workiva API, and it locks the project. There's also various other functionalities within APIs. We wanted to notify our team about upcoming observations or management action plans. Using the API, again, we can download that data real time, create dynamic, relevant emails for the team. And these efficiency-based capabilities have significantly improved our operations. And I'll say this: introducing APIs to data analytics teams in internal audit provides efficiency gains. It opens up opportunities for enhanced analytics, testing, and continuous monitoring as well.
I could see some listeners being like, wait, they added a P to AI. What is API? So for those that don't know what an API is, could you explain what an API is?
Yeah, it's called it stands for Application Programming Interface. So applications generally have this endpoint or way to interact programmatically with each other through applications or different tool sets. So it's like a standard that's used, industry wide. But if it's created in the application, it's a common language to be able to then interact with this endpoint, which is like a URL. It involves authentication, but the beauty is that you can get it on a real-time basis and opens up, I think, from a continuous monitoring standpoint for internal audit, as well as getting data more efficiently rather than clicking to download a report, going through different UIs to pull down data. This allows that back-end connection for you to do that.
So it allows two systems basically to talk to each other.
Exactly, yeah.
Got it. All right. And I know you recently got back from the Internal Audit Summit that Meta has annually. Anything to the extent you can share, what came out of that?
Yeah. So the Internal Audit Summit, again, at Meta was a truly a game changer for us. The theme was centered around reimagine. And we wanted to highlight the importance of collaboration and embracing the next generation of auditing. Want our team to fully engage and adopt the innovative technologies, including generative AI. It was a very inspiring day. We had the opportunity to hear from several leaders in the AI space within the company. And one of the key highlights of the summit was actually our formal launch of our generative AI chatbot platform, which is designed exclusively for our internal audit team. It's tailored to our specific needs, incorporates company context, while ensuring compliance with our internal audit security and privacy standards. We had various team members showcase a variety of AI and Gen AI use cases to transform the way we approach our audits going forward. This could be document analysis and also included risk assessments as well. The summit also highlighted the importance of leveraging each other and internal resources to overcome limitations and drive innovation, to reinforce our commitment to pushing the boundaries of what's possible in internal audit.
I'm sure there's some people curious, or at least wanting to, probably envious of, like, you guys have your own your own internal audit ChatGPT now. Who owned the we'll call it development of that? Was that was that OIT or some kind of center of excellence outside of audit? Did you guys do that yourself? Like, what can you tell us about if someone's interested and goes, hey, I want that for my internal audit department, how do I do it? Do you have any advice there?
Yeah. So there was a lot of best practices and learnings that came from this exercise, this project as well. Well, we went at it at a sort of multi-pronged sort of approach. So we had enlisted a vendor to help us build out a solution, leveraging their sort of capabilities and expertise. And additionally, another approach that we took was to try to leverage our internal sort of skill set within our internal audit team to push the boundaries and see if we can create something in-house as opposed to relying on a vendor. And what made it work was utilizing some of the open source frameworks and tools that are out there in the community. So what I mentioned earlier at the beginning, when Llama 3 is open source, you can get that downloaded and pretty much loaded up to a local machine, which is the way that we went about. So I looked at several tutorials online. Local, it's called local LLM, I think was some of the search terms that I look for to try to host a model locally. For us, security and privacy was very important, and we wanted to just have this contained within our realm, and no one else in the company that can see the data that was being pushed through in terms of the prompts or any retraining that goes along with it. So what I'd suggest is leverage, if you have internal resources, to learn about some of the capabilities that exist within the company. Two is the community in general. There's a very big community on deploying or using LLMs locally. And I was able to use a platform that works locally and host it on our end on a sort of secured cloud environment to make it available to the internal audit team here, because we don't need very, large amounts of power. Of course, from a computing standpoint, we do need some.
Yeah.
But for most of our use cases, we could leverage maybe a two-server machine with a limited amount of GPUs. But that's the advice that I'd say: leverage tutorials and the open source community.
Okay. What have you all, either with data or some AI tools, how are you using those in the audit process, whether that's planning or controls testing, risk assessment, reporting? How are you using any and all of those?
Yeah. So in our audit process, we emphasize the importance of focusing on the specific problem or task at hand, and then applying the appropriate technology to address it. I don't want to sort of force technology to drive the process. We want to instead let the problem or the test at hand dictate the solution. And with that said, we leverage data analytics to efficiently test large amounts of data quickly, identifying either patterns for planning or performing testing that sort of generates exceptions that may have been missed through the traditional methods. So a lot of what our typical internal audit shops are used to in terms of leveraging analytics. Generative AI plays a role in this by assisting us in suggesting maybe some areas of focus, generating or refining text that adheres to our internal style in terms of like guideline from a department standpoint, and even being able to predict future risks. And this combination enhances our efficiency and significantly improves the accuracy and depth of our audits, sort of take it into the next generation of auditing.
Okay. What about anything specific in planning? I know with data, when it comes to controls testing, it's pretty straightforward. Reporting can be pretty straightforward also. Risk assessment, not so much. But then planning, to me, is still, it's so, once we come into it, scope maybe not be set. There's so much that we can do with the data at that point. Is there any go-to techniques or anything specifically you could speak to in the planning phase that you like to do?
Yeah, in terms of planning, there's no one-click solution that will, at least at this point for us, that will generate these insights or some useful type of planning use cases. But we like to take it in form of a framework. So using generative AI, like a step-by-step sort of process, have it analyze if it was a repeat audit, and bring in the previous audit results, summarize the information that was learned from there. What were the observations, right? That could be step one. Another step would be any business changes, any key organizational changes. You want to bring that into the platform, introduce that as a secondary item, tell the LLM to take that into consideration, and then any emerging risks that either you've already performed or if you want it to perform the risk assessment, bring in the data. So those business changes will be an example, any industry-wide frameworks, as well as looking at large bodies of information that are related to that particular department to then identify the key areas or themes. You could tell the LLM, like, if you give it business changes, maybe some goals using natural language processing, you can tell it, hey, summarize each of these items into key risk areas, and only use 5 for the risk areas, for example. So then from there, right, the platform you could then tell it to, hey, based on the previous audit results, previous observations, business changes, and risks that you've now learned, create an audit plan, right, that prioritizes those high-risk areas, and then create the tests, right, associated to the audit plan for this particular audit, and suggest the more information you give, I think is what makes it innovative. It gives you a lot more context or gets very specific if you're giving that level of content. I like to use it as, I like to say it's treat it as an intern, for example. Give it more information than is necessary. That way it can produce results that are more tailored to what you might be looking for.
I think it's a good tip. Treat it like an intern. If there was a good actual takeaway, I think that's it. I've tried to describe, how do you prompt it? I say that it's more opinion than fact. Like, don't take it as what it's saying as an opinion. Take it, as a fact. Take it as kind of opinion and use it that way. But to set it up from the beginning and go, all right, you're an intern that doesn't really know what's going on. Let me give you as much info as I can. That's a really good tip. So I appreciate that. What about on the just productivity side for you, maybe personally, or what you use it on a productivity end for work? So as an example, I know whenever I have to email someone my schedule for the week or whatever, and it's like, I got a 30-minute pocket on this day, then another 30-minute, and then 30 minutes here. It's kind of a pain to go back and forth between calendar and the email and update it. And then inevitably I go, I forgot to put in my time zone. So anyway, we wrote this little script for, I'm on Google Calendar, and it basically scrapes my calendar and then puts it into a text field for all of the availability that I have. And then I use ChatGPT to write a script, just a Python script that basically cleans that up, does some rounding to give me some availability. So it's not always back to back to back to back. Changes time zones if I ask it to, but it's significantly easier to push basically 3 buttons and have my schedule for the next 2 weeks as it is to hunt back and forth. So for me, that was like one of my greatest projects ever, in my opinion, because there's not a solution out there. I couldn't find anyone that had built a tool to do this specifically. I saw where one guy on Reddit had the same use case, and everybody's like, I don't know what to do for you, man. So anyway, that's been huge for me, and I love it. Has there been anything like productivity wise that you found especially useful?
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far in terms of where the cool example that you shared. It sounds like you might be using a form of agent to be taking it a step further than the traditional platform, which is awesome. I've begun to explore the use of those agents from like functions, function calling, as well as like mini tools.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, from a productivity standpoint, I think it goes back to the basics of GenAI. I like using it for summarization of documents or text, giving like an initial analysis, what are the themes, reduce reduce this body of text into 50 words. Emails, I think I have a certain style for my emails. I've been able to train, or not necessarily train, but give it some examples of emails that I have crafted, and just tell it to, hey, based on these two examples, I want this email written in that same style. So that frees up sort of my time from a productivity standpoint to get it into that final result. And just creating, I guess, some insights and recommendations, either on topics from an auditing standpoint, or having it go out to the web to pull in new information. So if it's a model that is trained as of a certain date, you can have it get new information using a web search sort of capability that's built in to some of these tools.
You mentioned the model trained to a certain date, and I know a group that, so they had their own internal model, and they pointed it basically at this website, and it was going to pull everything from that website, and that was going to be kind of the back end history and knowledge base, I guess, for the solution they built. What they didn't think through is, the internet for this LLM hasn't been scraped in 12 months, and so we're not going to get the latest and greatest. And it took up basically until it wasn't in production, but as they were going through, they went, oh yeah, this isn't really working like we thought it would because of that. So I feel like there's probably some folks that aren't aware of that concept either. Can you walk people through what that means when you said the model to train to a certain date, what that means?
Yeah, so what that means is the models such as like the ChatGPT, they have been, while they're going through the process of training these models or getting the data for them, it's think of it as maybe a book, right? You've written it as a point of time, and the model itself has data that's there as of a certain date. But when you ask information from if you're looking for information that's new, or after the period that the model was trained on, it's going to either hallucinate or not be able to give you a correct answer, just because of that limitation in terms of being trained as of a certain date. But now what's happening is if we introduce this component where it can retrieve data either through knowledge base, to your point, or web search, it can then pull those facts and go out to either the knowledge base or the web to then make what it's returning to the user more up to date in terms of response. Like if you're looking for a certain, I like basketball and I like baseball, so if you wanted, yesterday the Celtics won the championship, right? So if you wanted to ask, hey, who won the 2024 championship for the NBA? Instead of saying, I don't have that information, it will go to the web, retrieve that, and then present it to you. So it's a way to get over that limitation.
Yeah. So we're talking about like testing different LLMs. If anyone's interested, you could go pull up a few different ones right now and put that prompt in and see what happens. Who won the NBA Finals in 2024? Because it just happened yesterday. So you could get some interesting results. Well, what we've asked you a lot of questions about AI, but what questions are you getting from leadership when it comes to AI?
Yeah, so from internal audit leadership and the audit committee, they're both mostly interested in understanding both the risks and opportunities associated with our generative AI initiatives. So this includes data security, privacy implications, and how we're complying with the different regulatory standards. On the opportunity side, they're very curious and interested in how generative AI can enhance our audit quality, improve the efficiency, and of course, how to provide deeper insights for our business operations. So how does this technology help us stay ahead of some of the emerging risks and also drive improvement continuously in our audit processes?
I think there's been a lot of questions for people around, like, how do I actually get my own, LLM, or how can I make it private and secure and all that kind of good stuff. So there was, I think, a lot of really straightforward guidance, this is how you can do it, which is always appreciated. To number one goal in the show is to figure out how to do our jobs basically better. But with that said, is there anything you want to leave the audience with as you kind of close it out?
I'd like to leave the audience with a message about the power of innovation and community. Embracing AI and generative AI can seem daunting, but there's tremendous resources and support available, both internally at your companies, as well as through the broader community with, from an analytics platform. Audit Analytics is a small close-knit community. So there are resources there, and the broader tech community, whether that's in forums, I think you can get a lot of resources as well as support there. Don't be afraid to experiment and leverage these technologies to enhance your overall audit processes. And on a more personal note, I acknowledge that some aspects of data analytics can be tedious. However, if you genuinely enjoy it, pursue it with passion, because the rewards and opportunities are significant. As I mentioned, there's a lot of help out there, and being a part of a supportive community can make a difference. Always stay curious and keep learning, whether that's adopting new technologies or exploring personal interests. Growth will come from stepping out of your comfort zone and embracing new challenges.
Hey everyone, thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Audit Podcast. Whatever platform you're listening on right now, I'm sure there's a subscribe button somewhere, so please hit the subscribe button there. If you're listening through iTunes or Spotify, feel free to go give us that 5-star rating. It only took me about 16 seconds to give myself a 5-star review, and it really helps to get future guests to come on the show, so we'd really appreciate that. Lastly, be sure to check out the show notes and follow us on all our social media channels, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on TikTok. Also, if interested, please sign up for our weekly newsletter from the Audit Podcast. Thank you all. Have a great one.